Hey everybody, Maria back with another video, and of course I'm just doing nothing but thinking. I couldn't focus on my job right now, even if I tried. No matter how basic the job is, it's just right now I can't deal with paperwork and shuffling or anything like that because my mind is just fixated on the realization of this. Not just this program, but I'm talking about other programs that destroy the lives of other people. In one of my videos I talked about the difference between barbarity and being civilized, okay? The more I think about this situation, like for example with Piggy and his mom, the very fact that nobody seems to look at this as a bad thing is because this is normal to these people, okay? And I'm not trying to cut down the town of Bakersfield in any way, okay? But there are certain places that you can go to in the United States where certain things are normal to some people. Like, some people make fun of Southerners because there's a lot of incest, inbreeding, and whatnot. And here, and maybe I'm not saying just here because, I remember reading books back in the 90s, and I talked about this before, about people adopting children for basically slavery, in a form of slavery. Like, you adopt a kid and you use them for sex or field labor or whatever, and you deny them of their basic human rights. In this case, I'm looking at Piggy. Piggy's almost 50 years old, and his mother has this control over him that to me is abnormal. To a civilized person, this is abnormal. To somebody who lives in ignorance and darkness, this is something that is normal to them. And so, I remember when I first moved here, I met this white guy. And we were talking, and he was from a different state, and he moved here. I don't know if he's still here or not, but he and I were in a conversation, and he said, have you ever noticed that the people in this town don't like outsiders? And I said, I didn't have a point of reference, so I never really reflected on what he was saying. I just kind of thought, well, maybe he's been here longer, maybe he's experienced stuff that's a little different, maybe they eat different food, maybe they have different, and this, what's so weird about this is the fact that, this is not too far from where I grew up. Now, mind you, who's to say that, I originally grew up in Lancaster, that Lancaster doesn't practice the same thing. I know, I guess this would be considered human trafficking, maybe, if you're adopting children and using them for slaves. It could have very well been. I'm just trying to reflect on some of the people that I knew who were adopted, but, from what I understand and what I see from their current state, all the people that I can remember from my memory bank are living productive lives. They're independent, they're living on their own or whatever. So I don't necessarily think that they were adopted for abusive reasons. Some people were just, they could have had a relative who couldn't raise the child, so they handed the child over to someone else, and then they raised them. Or some people had fertility problems, and they adopted a child for, because in their mind they wanted to love another child. They had it in their heart to give love to somebody, and wanted to give a child a home. Okay, so nobody really, if this doesn't cause an outrage in people, injustices like this doesn't cause an outrage in people, then that just goes to show you that there is a difference between, what is civilized and what people who live in darkness and people who live in ignorance. And that when people who live in darkness and ignorance, they tend to be barbaric in behavior. They're not able to empathize and realize that other people have feelings and whatnot. Now, during the process of raising a child or normalizing something that is barbaric, okay? Like, for example, there are certain mind control techniques that I'm sure Piggy had to go through when he was younger to make it seem like this was normal to him. To me, I personally think he thinks it's just as normal as making a sandwich. It's as normal as putting up a Christmas tree to him. It's as normal as whatever. But like I said, just like the man who was talking to me when I first moved here, and he was a white man, okay? So like I said, when white people say things about Bakersfield, that says a lot, okay? It says a lot, okay? White outsiders say things about Bakersfield, it says a lot. Not to say that my opinion doesn't matter. But when a white person notices extreme forms of racism, when a white person notices that a white person lives below the standard of what a person who's civilized lives, it carries a lot of weight, okay? And it should. It should make people like, whoa, this is some strange shit. This is some strange shit, okay? This is really some strange shit that goes on. And I have dealt with, the strange behavior of these people. And like I said, when I was growing up in Lancaster, I was really too young to be able to, make the comparison and like really gather statistical information about adopted people. All I can do is go back in my memory bank and think of the people who were adopted that I remember and what their current state is now. So far, I believe the ones that I can recall are doing okay. Like they're living normal, productive lives, okay? At least from, my perspective, okay? Because I know some of these people are married, they're living away from home, they have lives of their own, they are raising children, they're doing things that are normal. Now, some people think, well, you're not doing anything normal, okay, but that's my choice, okay? There's a difference there, okay? I'm just saying is was somebody adopted for the sake of controlling. Now, maybe my sister Tanya got the idea that she should start controlling my life because she's hanging out with Esther. Esther, to me, is no more than a child molester, so she doesn't really need to tell me or critique my sister and what I'm supposed to be doing. So Tanya could be learning some strange behavior from somebody who is basically barbaric, and and this is not cutting people down. It's just what it is. You can't help yourself if this is what you've been exposed to. You can't change who you are or help your behavior. That's why I struggle with my feelings about Piggy, because this is all Piggy's known. It's normal to him, and to me, it's not, okay? Now, I know that Piggy seems to be intelligent in some ways, okay? He seems to, he reads well, he has a good vocabulary, okay? But yet, he never seems to be able to formulate anything productive at all, okay? Now, in my case, I could be productive, but the thing is, there's a situation in place that prevents me from doing so. Now, in his case, also, it's the same thing like his mom, okay? But still, his coping mechanisms are just like self-destructive, even at this age, okay? Now, we all go through periods of time where we do things that are self-destructive, but he doesn't seem to get out of it because he doesn't have a choice, okay? So I'm looking at this situation, and, I'm not trying to raise issues in Bakersfield, but I can say that living here has created a problem because I'm civilized and I'm living in a town that's not, okay? There's a lot of jealousy, cutthroat behavior that now I'm just now starting to open up in my eyes, and I'm starting to see, it's racism, yes it is, but it's even more than that, okay? There is something seriously wrong with where I'm living. So I would like to get out. I'm not trying to be one of those people who try to come into a town and try to change their way of life, okay? I'm just basically saying what I'm noticing, and I realize that this is not a place for me, okay? Now, I mentioned earlier that there was a black person who held a management position here in this town. Now, he works for a company that has many branches. Perhaps maybe the reason why he's able to be here in this town is because maybe the main headquarters could be in another state. There's decision-making power that is not centralized here in this town, and then also he may know some people or whatever, and that allows him to work freely and everything else. I'm not sure what the deal is, okay? I'm not going to try to struggle to be in a town where I don't fit in, okay? And I'm more than willing to get out of this town. Like I said, it's a matter of me just getting it together, but I need to make sure I'm going to be safe and I can be okay. Like I said, I'm not trying to change this town. This town could do whatever it wants. I understand what's normal to some people, but this is my observation, okay? You're not going to convince me that this lifestyle is normal or productive or good for anybody. It is a town that is based on ignorance, and I'm starting to see exactly what people have told me, and it's quite eye-opening. So, Jackie Sullivan wants America to be the rest of this town, and whoa, that's just mind-blowing, from my perspective, as a civilized person, that's interesting. Let's hope not. But you know what, I'm sure the rest of the country has its own problems, okay? I'm not naive, okay? I know that all kinds of crime runs rampant. You got drug trafficking, you got human trafficking, you've got gangs of all kinds, all races, running the street. You have all kinds of underground prostitution rings. You got shit going on all over the world, okay? I'm not stupid. I'm not. Okay? But this, right, to me, it's like, wow, you know? And these people don't know the difference between right and wrong. They don't. They don't know the difference between right and wrong. And, but I do. So this is just another proof that I'm a civilized person. And I prefer to be around other civilized people. I'm not trying to change Bakersfield by any means. This is my notation. This is my journal. This is my log. This is my, what do you want to call it? It's like a video blog or a journal, you know, to look back on my experience here. And I'm just starting to realize and just how what people have been telling me, and I'm opening my eyes, because, you know, I want to tell you that I have been struggling a lot, you know, since I got here, but just raising my son throughout the years, going to work, coming home, that's all I thought about was just surviving. And of course, you know, I had my quiet moments and meditating and getting myself centered on other issues, but I never really thought about it. You know, like I stayed distant from Piggy and his family. I knew I didn't like them, but I knew that they were rude and just people that I would rather not deal with, but I never really thought about how deep this really is. Like, maybe I was somehow subconsciously I was picking up on something that I just didn't like. I knew I didn't like them. You know, I knew they were rude, and, you know, and I knew there was ignorance from that point, but it's like just how bad these people were, I had no idea. So it's like, wow, man, like, open your eyes, Maria, and it's a completely, whew, I'm going to tell you, that's eye-opening. So, yeah, you know, just another thought that I'm having that doesn't necessarily relate to gang stalking, but it does. I will say that their employment practices is another reflection of their ignorance, you know. And then, you know, when I think about people like Laura Hill, because I think Laura Hill was from Chicago, you know. I don't know why Laura Hill probably has, you know, immersed herself in the culture, and she probably accepts it as normal. Or Laura Hill was raised in a family that's very similar to what she's experienced, what she experiences here, to where it's normal to her. Because I can't understand somebody, you know, an outsider, you know, wanting to live here, you know, and just think that this stuff's normal, or is her eyes not open to it, or is she being convinced, is she being manipulated, or perhaps persuaded by the religious aspect of it? What exactly is it about her that makes her accept this culture? And it is a culture. What about, well, how could somebody, I thought said she was from Chicago. How could somebody who I thought, I mean, and maybe I could be wrong about Chicago, maybe Chicago mirrors this kind of stuff. I mean, I'm like really starting to like trip on all of this. Because I'm going to tell you what, Bakersfield is not, it's not a prim and proper place. It's not. That's not to hurt anybody here. I'm not bashing my next door neighbor. I'm not trying to look down on them. I'm just saying, because people can't help the environment that they were raised in. But it's very eye-opening to me, okay? So I'm trying to make some sense of it all, you know? Because, you know, I understand that there's all kinds of evils in this world. I understand that things are not as, I've always believed that. I've always believed that, you know, things are not like, you know, ideal. They're not fairy tales. They're not like, you know, after-school specials. They're not, you know, they're not like the Cosby Show or the Brady Bunch. They're not like that in any way, shape, or form. But, I mean, I'm just certain, my eyes are just open to so much, like, corruption and filth that I can't even, it's hard for me to comprehend, you know what I mean? So I'm obviously, you know, questioning life even more than I've ever questioned it. And because I'm understanding just how the extent of the evil that exists in this world. And, you know, I believe that evil can originate from ignorance, you know, because, you know, like, for example, you know, in the South, when white people would lynch black people, but yet some of them actually, they swore up and down that some of their black people that they knew, they were enduring. They kind of liked them as friends, but they couldn't have any compassion for them at the same time because they didn't relate to them as humans because they don't get it. You know what I mean? So I think there's just a lot of ignorance is something that is destructive, and it can kill people. It's like a horrible. It's not a good thing to not be civilized. Okay, let's just wrap that up and say that right there. It is a terrible thing to be ignorant, and some people are willfully aware of the fact that yes, you know, people who don't look like them are worthy of living or whatever. But still, you know, whatever the case is, this is a town that's corrupt. Period. I hate the thought of America being like Bakersfield. You know, I really, really do. It disturbs me greatly. So I will be back with another video, and until then, have a wonderful day.